Yorkshire, England, April 1946, 0640 hours. The lorry shudders to a halt, and the canvas breathes in and out with the rain. 20 men sway together, quiet as sacks, metal buckles ticking against wood. Through a slit where the tarp has frayed, Corporal László Kovács sees hedgerows like stitching in a green coat, a church spire lifting a wet sky, and no smokestacks anywhere to make the scene behave. For weeks he has carried the same picture in his head: dogs, clubs, a yard where names are read out until you learn not to answer. The picture does not match the doorway that opens now. A sign on a post: Camp 201, War Department property. A sergeant steps up in mud-dark boots, cap pulled low, pencil bitten short. No bark, no snarl. Off you get, lads. One line. Keep it tidy. Gravel moves under László's boots. He waits for the blow that usually follows an order. None arrives. A corporal with sleeves rolled to the elbow points at a long shed that exhales steam like an animal asleep. Towel stacks, tin basins, bars of soap the color of bone. Something faintly floral rides the steam. Lavender, he decides, though the word feels foreign in his mouth. He trails the others inside, hands hovering over water that is hot enough to sting, but not enough to punish. Dirt lifts from his wrists in brown ribbons. A face he has not looked at honestly in months gathers itself in the clouded mirror. Hollowed cheeks, nick on the ear, eyes that have learned to watch first and breathe after. The towel is rough and leaves him pink along the collar. A clean shirt hangs on a peg. It is not his, and it fits anyway. The mess hut hums low, a room full of men pretending not to want what they have just been handed. Bread, stew, cabbage. Portions measured without malice. He lifts a spoon as if bracing to be disappointed, and is not. The stew is hot and honest, and he hates how quickly the honesty makes his shoulders sag. The guard who served him returns without ceremony, drops a small rectangle beside the tin plate, and is gone down the line before László can speak. He turns it over. Cigarettes. 4 of them in a thin, tidy packet, stamped with a day in blue ink. For today, the guard calls to no one in particular. Something shifts in László's chest. A small click he feels more than hears. The sound of a lock he did not know was inside him, giving an inch. Payment implies labor. Labor implies time that belongs to more than hunger. He should not think this, but the thought arrives before he can stop it. Across the table, Imre, 19, more youth than bone, watches him with the caution of a field mouse. "They'll take it back later," he murmurs, Hungarian slanting soft under the roof noise. "They'll say we owe them for the soap." "Maybe," László says, because doubt has kept him alive and he will not betray it in a single afternoon. He slides the packet into his breast pocket, feels the papery weight settle against the heat of his skin, and tells himself he is not pleased. Rain pats the roof in a rhythm the body remembers as safe. A medic with a red crossband at his sleeve kneels at the end of the table where a man has not been able to get his boot off. The leather has darkened with old blood. The medic does not speak Hungarian. He does not need to. He works in the grammar of careful hands, lace by lace, tongue by tongue, until the foot spills out, swollen and raw. He winces for the man, not at him, and says something soft in English that sounds like apology. Iodine blooms the color of rust. Fresh gauze makes a small, clean miracle. A cardboard tag flutters where he ties it. Infirmary. It is work, not theatre. The picture in László's head tries to reassert itself. Chains, pits, a discipline written in bones, and fails against the sight of a basin wiped during a lull, a ladle rinsed between servings, a pencil scratching names with the same pressure for every man. Policy, not pity. The realization is more unsettling than mercy would have been. Registration makes order even out of strangers. A table by the door, one queue, a ledger with columns that have already anticipated them: name, rank, number, place of capture, medical condition. The clerk's German works the way a cart works on a road that is mostly flat. It judders over certain stones and keeps going. A dented watch, László's, a gift from a father still alive or dead depending on which rumour you allow in the door, goes into an envelope with his name in careful block letters, and a promise is attached to the string, to be returned on release. The promise is ridiculous and therefore terrifying. He nods anyway, because not nodding would make him feel smaller than he already does. Hut assignment follows. Stove ticking as it cools, straw mattress that crunches like frost when he lays a hand on it, a window that does not quite close against the damp, patched with a square of oiled paper that hums when the wind presses it. The wire outside sings in a key that has nothing to do with him and everything to do with the shape of the land. By evening, the mess smells of boiled cabbage and wet wool. Someone laughs once and then remembers not to. At the far end, a man sets down his spoon and covers his face, shoulders moving without sound. No one tells him to stop. No one looks too long. There are courtesies even here. They arrive from somewhere older than orders. On the wall by the serving hatch, a board has been chalked and rubbed and chalked again until the wood shows through like a scar. Tomorrow's work details in tidy caps, damp softening the edges. Harland Farm, 6:30, ditching, fence repair. Tokens redeemable for clothing, Saturdays at stores. The sentence sits there as if it has always existed. Stores, a word that means a room where shirts you did not earn wait on hooks with tags. Redeemable, a word that asks you to believe in a transaction that returns something you lost by becoming a number. While he reads, the corporal from earlier, woman, hair tucked under her cap, pencil behind the ear, takes quick measurements of shoulders and sleeve. Pending issue, she says, marking a ledger with quick ticks. You'll find me in stores on Saturday if you've earned the right. Her mouth says it like a joke and not like a threat. There is the faintest ghost of a smile when Imre steps forward shaking and she pretends not to see the shake. Lights out is a mercy disguised as an order. The room goes dark in a way that makes sound larger. Boots arranged in pairs under bunks. A cough that wants to be a sickness and settles for being just a cough. László lies flat with the cigarettes like a secret over his heart and tries to decide if dignity can be issued like a towel, and, if it can, whether that makes it less real. He thinks of the march and the men who pitched their expectations ahead of them like stones to find out where the ground ends. He thinks of his mother, who would put a coat on him in spring just to hear him complain, and of his brother, who could call a lie by its middle name. He thinks of the spire he saw through the tarp, how it punctured a sky that had nothing to say to him and said it anyway, and of the medic's hands moving in a language nobody needs to translate. It occurs to him that a system is not kinder because it smiles. It is kinder because it does not need to hurt you to know where you belong. This thought frightens him more than any threat he has heard shouted in a yard. It means the fence might be the whole punishment, and the rest a structure that expects him to survive it. At some hour that is not late and not early, rain slackens to a soft tapping, and the stove gives up its last tick. He drifts and wakes and drifts again. A bell somewhere counts the time in a voice that could belong to any town. When he finally sleeps properly, it is not because he trusts the place, but because the body does not consult the mind after a journey like this. Dawn comes as a wet fist knocking against the oiled paper. A whistle snaps men upright. They move like figures pulled from boxes and reassembled, each part finding its place by memory. Outside, The wire sings its work song, and the board waits with its chalk truth. He buttons the loaned shirt, touches the pocket where the cigarettes ride like a promise that can be spent, and steps into air that smells of lanolin and coal and a day that will cost him muscles and give him tokens. He has not yet read the directive that explains this: reciprocity, inspections, a line where tobacco becomes wages and wages become shirts with another man's name sewn where yours should be. He only understands that the queue to stores on Saturday will end at a counter where policy turns into cloth. The farm detail chalked on the board is not a threat, but a scaffold. If there is a trick in it, he will find it. If there is no trick, he will have to find himself. He clicks the door shut gently so it does not wake the one still tying laces, touches the pocket again just to be certain the packet remains, and follows the line toward the gate where Mackay counts them out without raising his voice. The world past the wire is grey, and somewhere beyond that grey a ledger waits with his name, spelled the way the clerk's hand learned to spell it last night. He counts his steps, because counting is a way to stay upright, and because this is what there is: work at 6:30, tokens on Saturday, cigarettes and clothes that spend like the first words of a language he has not yet decided to speak. The whistle slices through the morning mist like a blade. 6:30 hours. The men form a line before the gates, boots sinking in the clay. Rain has left the ground the colour of old tea. Sergeant Mackay walks the row, clipboard tucked under his arm, counting without looking. 15 for Harland Farm, he says. You work honest, you get honest. Slack, and you'll sit in the hut with no extras. Clear? The line murmurs agreement, tired and uncertain. László adjusts the strap of his borrowed jacket and keeps his eyes forward. The air smells of wet wool and diesel. Behind them, Camp 201 hums with order, guards exchanging shifts, a cook ladling porridge into tins, a distant hammer setting a rhythm no one questions. The gate creaks open. Beyond it stretches the Yorkshire countryside, sprawling green, soaked through with April. For months, László had imagined the enemy's land as a grey island of stone and smoke. Instead, it looks alive, almost kind. The walk to the farm takes an hour. They move in silence, guarded by 2 British corporals, one humming tunelessly, the other limping from a bad knee that squeaks in the cold. Fields unroll on either side like an unending quilt. Sheep watch them pass with blank indifference. When the group reaches a dirt lane bordered by hawthorn, a man is already waiting, short, wiry, maybe 60. Cap pulled low, eyes pale as dishwater. Mr. Harland, the farmer. He looks at them the way a man looks at the weather, something to be managed, not hated. You'll muck the stalls, mend the fences, keep the drains clear. Harland says, voice clipped but not cruel. Work steady, no talking back. There's tea at noon. That's all. He turns away before anyone answers. The sergeant nods toward the barn. Off you go, lads. Inside, the air is thick with straw and the slow warmth of animals. Cows shift in their stalls, tails flicking at flies that don't yet exist this early in the spring. László grabs a pitchfork. The handle is smooth from use, someone else's work printed into the wood. The first hour is silent labour. Fork, lift, dump. The smell of dung mixes with hay and something sharper, disinfectant maybe. Imre sneezes until his eyes water. Balint mutters prayers under his breath, each word a ghost of home. When the barn doors open again, it's not a guard, but Harland himself, carrying a tin kettle and a box of mugs. Tea, he says simply. You've earned it. The men freeze, unsure if it's a joke. It isn't. He pours for each in turn. No smile, no speech, just hot liquid in cold hands. After the midday tea, Mackay distributes tokens from a tin, small cards marked with serial numbers and dates. "Saturday," he says, tapping the tin. "Take these to stores. Cigarettes, socks, shirts." Whatever's listed, László turns the token between his fingers. Payment again. Proof that this place runs on a logic stranger than cruelty. Barlint snorts. "They give you paper, then take it back as shirts that smell of them. Fair trade, eh?" But by evening, even he pockets his token with care. The workday stretches until the sun dips behind the trees. 8 hours. Honest hours. Not one shout, not one kick. When the whistle blows, László's arms ache, not from punishment but from something simpler, labor that begins and ends with daylight. As they file back toward the camp, the sergeant pauses beside him. "Good effort today," Mackay says. "Keep it that way, and you'll get your Saturday ration without trouble." László nods. He doesn't trust praise, but it lands differently when spoken like fact rather than charity. That night, in Hut 7, the men sit around the stove, trading stories that begin in disbelief and end in silence. József, once a tailor in Budapest, repairs a torn cuff on his sleeve with a bent needle and thread pulled from an unraveling sock. His fingers move quickly, neatly. "You see," he says half to himself, "work is work. Doesn't matter the side. Fabric doesn't know uniforms." Imre pulls the packet of cigarettes from his pocket and holds it like something sacred. "They smell expensive," he whispers. László laughs quietly. "Smoke one. Maybe it will make the barbed wire look like fences." They share the cigarette, passing it between them, each pull small and reverent. The smoke curls above the stove, soft as forgiveness. Outside, rain has turned the yard into a field of mirrors. The guards walk their routes with lanterns that swing light across the puddles. The reflection of the fence looks almost like a line of stars. Saturday. The line for stores stretches down the corridor, men clutching their tokens like currency in a country they don't understand. Behind the counter, Corporal Annie Price sorts bundles, shirts, socks, gloves, all second-hand but clean. She stamps each card, exchanges one bundle for one token, and keeps a ledger that never wavers. When it's László's turn, she looks up briefly, eyes sharp but not unkind. "Medium or large?" He hesitates. "Medium, I think." She nods, slides him a folded shirt, then reaches into another box and adds a small packet. Cigarettes. Standard issue. For farm detail, he doesn't know what to say. "Thank you" feels out of place, too soft, too personal for a transaction that is both rule and ritual. He nods instead, and she marks the ledger again. Behind him, József jokes to Imre that the shirt smells of cologne. Maybe from the officer who died in it. No one laughs, but no one stops him either. Gallows humor feels safer when the gallows are gone. Back in the hut, László changes into the new shirt. The fabric is coarse but dry, and for a moment the weight of it feels like belonging. He opens the cigarette packet and lights one for himself. The taste is harsh, smoky with salt, but it anchors him. He exhales slowly, watching the smoke dissolve against the ceiling beams. If cruelty had been the rule, he would have known how to live with it. This decency disguised as routine is harder to bear. When lights out comes, the men settle wordlessly. Somewhere outside, a dog barks and is hushed. The guard's boots pass twice, then fade. László lies awake, feeling the warmth of the cigarette's ghost on his tongue and the faint scratch of clean fabric against his throat. The sound of rain fills the space where fear used to live. For the first time since capture, he doesn't imagine escape. He imagines tomorrow, another day of work, another token, another small proof that life, even inside wire, can be paid for honestly. He closes his eyes and thinks, if they meant to chain us, why give us wages? The question, unanswerable and vast, rocks him into uneasy sleep. Morning settles like smoke over Camp 201. The fog is thin enough to see the guard towers, thick enough to make them feel far away. Work details are already forming in the yard, boots grinding against the cinders. László tightens the strap of his jacket, the borrowed one issued to him weeks earlier. It's fraying at the collar, and the cloth has thinned along the elbows. He tells himself he doesn't care. It's just a jacket, just another layer of borrowed time. After breakfast, Mackay calls his name. Kovács, report to stores after your shift. No explanation, no accusation, just the calm authority of a man who means what he says. The day's work takes them back to Harlan's farm. The rain from the night before has turned the fields into thick beds of mud. Each step pulls at the men's boots as if the ground itself wants to claim them. Harlan waits by the gate, tapping the end of a stick against his boot. He nods once, a gesture that passes for welcome. Fences along the north side, he says. Keep the posts straight. I don't want them looking like drunkards. The men set to work. Wire coils squeal as they unroll, the sound sharp against the morning quiet. László drives stakes into the ground, hands numbed by cold. By midday, his palms are blistered again. When Harlan appears with a jug of cider and tin cups, no one hesitates. The cider burns going down, but it's a clean burn. Later, as they walk back to camp, Mackay joins them for a stretch of the road. His limp slows his pace, but not his tone. Tomorrow you'll see the stores clerk, he tells László. They're fitting out new issue from surplus stock. Don't lose it. Every button's counted. That night, László can't sleep. The air in the hut is damp with sweat and wool. He listens to Imre's soft snoring and Yosef's occasional cough, then stares at the ceiling beams until dawn leaks in pale through the cracks. When he reports to stores, the smell hits first. Dust, soap, oilcloth. Behind the counter, Corporal Annie Price writes in a ledger without looking up. Piles of folded uniforms surround her like grey waves. She gestures toward a wooden stool. Stand still, she says, measuring his chest with a strip of tape. You're a medium. Wait there. She rummages through a pile, lifts a mended jacket, and lays it across the counter. The cloth is heavier than his old one, softer too. Inside the lining, a small tag shows through the stitching. Faded ink, one word still legible, W. Turner. László runs his thumb over the name. Whoever Turner was, the jacket still holds his shape. Annie catches him staring. Former issue, she says. All surplus is inspected, cleaned, re-tagged if needed. That one passed. He nods, but his throat tightens around the thought that another man once wore this same fabric, sweated into it, maybe bled into it, and didn't live long enough to get it laundered. He puts it on. It fits perfectly. Outside, the air feels different against this new skin. He walks past the wire and notices a Red Cross van parked near the commandant's office. Two men unload crates labelled inspection records. British officers check papers, exchange clipped sentences. The scene is mechanical, efficient. Nothing hidden, everything recorded. Later that day, during a lull in work, László sits on an overturned bucket with Yosef. The tailor threads a needle through a ripped cuff on his own shirt. They measure everything here, he says. Calories, hours, words spoken, even kindness. Kindness? László repeats. Of course, Yosef says. It's rationed like everything else. They give just enough to keep you human, never enough to make you forget you're not free. László thinks of the Red Cross crates, the ledgers, the chalked schedules. He realizes this civility is no accident, it's engineered, a system so polite it can't be accused of cruelty, and so firm it never loses control. That night, the camp library opens for the first time in weeks. 2 shelves of English books, a handful in German, and a stack of technical manuals donated by the Red Cross. Mackay stands by the door, pretending not to supervise. 2 hours, he says. Don't ruin the pages with grease. László picks a thin book at random, a dictionary. Each new word feels like a step through fog. He finds one that stays with him. Restraint. The definition is short, almost clinical. To hold back, to control one's impulses. He reads it twice, feeling the weight of its meaning sink into him. Days pass, and the jacket begins to carry his smell. Harland lets him take the tractor alone one afternoon, trusting him to harrow the far field. No guard follows. The engine rattles under his hands. For the first time since capture, the horizon feels reachable. He could drive until the tank runs dry. He could vanish. He doesn't. He finishes the rows, parks the tractor where he found it, and wipes the mud from the tires. When Harland checks the fuel gauge and finds it full, he grunts. Good lad. 2 words, clipped and heavy, but they stay in László's chest long after the sound fades. That evening, he sits outside the hut with Imre and watches the guards toss a football between them. One slips, lands in the mud and laughs. The prisoners laugh too, quietly. For a moment, the wire between them dissolves into nothing. Inside, Josef is stitching a torn sleeve. They treat us like men, he says softly, because it keeps the peace. Smart, isn't it? László nods. Maybe peace is the trick. He takes the jacket off, runs a finger over the tag again. W. Turner, someone else's name stitched above his heart. The thought sits heavy, but not unpleasantly so. Maybe the name isn't a ghost. Maybe it's permission. To start again. When lights go out, the hut falls into steady breathing. László lies awake, the word restraint whispering in his head. He doesn't know if it's the British policy or the human condition. Either way, it's working. In the distance, the river swells from days of rain. Tomorrow, Mackay says, they'll shore up the banks near Harland's field. Another task. Another day of work that asks nothing of hate. As he drifts towards sleep, he presses his hand against the faded name inside the jacket and feels a strange kind of gratitude. If this is strategy, it's a kind one. If it's mercy, it's the kind that teaches rather than humiliates. He closes his eyes and thinks of what it means to wear another man's name, to live under another man's rules, and to still feel like himself. The jacket is warm, the night is quiet. The war, for him, is slowly becoming something that happened to other people. The rain begins before dawn, a steady hiss against the barracks roof that grows heavier with every passing hour. By morning, Camp 201 feels smaller, the air dense with damp and the smell of wet earth. The guards mutter about the river swelling beyond its banks. When Mackay posts the day's assignment, his tone is curt. Harland farm again, ditch clearing, mind the ground, it's slick. The lorry ride is rough, the wheels slurring through mud that seems to have no bottom. By the time they reach the farm, the fields have turned into brown lakes reflecting a bruised sky. Harland stands near the fence, coat soaked through, shouting to be heard over the wind. The south field's gone under, he says. Keep to the north. Drain what you can. If the ditch bursts, it'll take the barn with it. No one argues. They spread out, shovels sinking with every thrust. Water runs down their sleeves, their breath fogging in the cold. László's fingers numb until he can't feel the handle anymore. Still, he digs. By noon, the rain becomes a downpour. Harland's horse cart creaks toward the barn, loaded with sandbags. The wheels catch in the mire. A sudden groan of wood, a shout, and the cart lurches sideways. Harlan's young nephew, perched on the back, tumbles beneath it with a cry. László doesn't think. He drops his shovel and runs. The cart has pinned the boy's leg against a half-buried stone. Water pools around his face, mud filling his mouth when he tries to scream. "Imre! József! Help me!" László yells. They wade in, boots vanishing in the muck. József jams a fence post under the axle, while László braces with both hands and heaves. The wood shifts, groans, and finally tips. The boy gasps, clutching his leg. "Pull him out!" Imre grabs the child under the arms and drags him clear. The three of them collapse in the mud, breathing hard. For a moment no one moves. Rain washes the dirt from their faces. Harland arrives, stumbling and pale. He drops to his knees beside the boy, running trembling hands over his limbs. The leg is bruised but not broken. His voice cracks as he looks up at them. "You saved him." László shakes his head. "We just lifted." But Harland is already gripping his arm, his fingers rough and desperate. "You saved him," he repeats, as if saying it again makes it real. When the lorry returns them to camp, Mackay waits by the gate. He doesn't speak, but his eyes flick from their mud-caked uniforms to the still trembling hands of the men. Later that night, when the dinner bell rings, the mess hall is different. On each table sits an extra loaf of bread and a note scrawled in neat handwriting. "For your help today." The Harlands. No one says a word. They just eat, slower than usual, as if tasting the meaning more than the food. As December comes, the war feels distant, like an echo across a field. The camp prepares for Christmas. Paper stars hang crookedly from rafters, cut by men who once made artillery maps. Annie Price delivers parcels from local townsfolk, socks, gloves, and the precious currency of tobacco. "From the village committee," she says, handing out each one. "Don't get sentimental." It's just policy, but the tremor in her voice betrays her. When the men unwrap their parcels, the smell of tobacco fills the air, thick and sweet. Some laugh softly, others sit still, staring at the gifts like they might vanish if touched. László unfolds a second-hand pair of gloves, one slightly larger than the other. Inside the wrapping is a note in pencil, faint from damp. "Merry Christmas, lads." He can't remember the last time he heard that word without irony. That night, the camp holds a brief service in the mess hall. The chaplain reads from a small Bible, his accent rolling over the Hungarian ears that barely understand. Then the singing begins. Silent Night in English first, then in hesitant German, and finally, when László starts softly, in Hungarian. The voices blend, uneven but earnest, until the walls hum with something that sounds a little like forgiveness. The guards stand at the back, caps in their hands. Mackay's lips move, following the tune. Afterward he passes out small tins of shortbread and cigarettes. "From the commandant," he says. "Don't expect it every year." László lights one of the cigarettes and steps outside. Snow has begun to fall, melting as it touches the ground. He smokes slowly, the glow reflecting on the wire. Inside, Imre hums the last line of the hymn. "You think they mean it?" he asked quietly. "The song?" "The kindness." László exhales, watching the smoke twist into the night. "Maybe they don't have to mean it," he says. "Maybe it just has to be real." He looks down at his gloves, mismatched and warm. On the inside of the left one, faint letters stitched into the lining catch his eye. W. Turner, the same name from his jacket. He laughs softly, not out of mockery, but disbelief. The dead man's belongings keep finding him, as if the war refuses to let either of them go. That night, as the snow thickens, the camp is silent except for the low hum of the generator. László lies awake, thinking of the boy's small face, of Harlan's rough hand gripping his shoulder, of Annie Price pretending her voice doesn't shake, and of Mackay's steady orderliness that hides a human pulse beneath it. If this is strategy, it is the strangest he's ever known. A war fought with fairness. He closes his eyes and thinks, not of escape, but of the work waiting tomorrow. Fences, mud, and the quiet dignity of men who once fought each other and now share cigarettes under falling snow. The jacket and gloves hang on the bunk rail beside him. The faint smell of tobacco clings to them like memory. He whispers into the dark, if mercy is policy, then maybe humanity is a habit. And for the first time, he believes it. The frost came early that year. By February 1947, the wind from the moors carried a dry, metallic cold that settled in the bones. The camp looked smaller under snow, quieter, tidier, almost peaceful. But inside Hut 7, a tension hummed beneath the surface. A new list had been posted. Repatriation schedule, Mackay said at roll call, transport to Hull. From there, ships to Hamburg, Bremen, Budapest, wherever home still stands. The men crowded around the board after he left. Imre's name was there. So was Barlin's. So was László's. For a long moment, he just stared. He should have felt relief. This was the day he'd dreamed of. The end of wire, the end of English words, the end of pretending that mercy didn't feel like defeat. But the thought of leaving made his stomach twist. He packed slowly over the next days. 2 shirts, 1 wool sweater, a tin cup, and the jacket marked W. Turner. When he folded it, the faded name caught the light. He hesitated, then slipped it on, instead of packing it. Some things were meant to travel, not be left behind. At Harlan's farm, the goodbyes were brief. The farmer's handshake was firm, his voice rough with cold and emotion he refused to name. Your work was sound, Harlan said. Wouldn't mind men like you in peacetime. Mrs. Harlan pressed a small parcel into his hands, a laundered shirt wrapped in brown paper. Too big for the boy now, she said. You'll make better use of it. He wanted to thank her but found no words. Gratitude, like guilt, was something he still hadn't learned to speak. At stores, Annie Price checked his ledger card one last time. All accounted for, she murmured, stamping it with a practiced hand. Then she reached beneath the counter and added something extra, a small box of cigarettes, tied neatly with twine. For the journey, she said. He met her eyes and saw the faintest trace of a smile. Thank you, Corporal, he said. It was the first time he'd addressed a British officer without fear. The platform at Leeds was crowded with men and parcels. Steam hissed from the waiting train, curling through the morning light like ghosts of their old lives. Mackay walked the line, ticking names off his clipboard. When he reached László, he paused. Travel safe, lad, he said quietly. László nodded, but the word lad hit harder than any order he'd ever received. It was the kind of word you used for one of your own. He found a seat by the window, the jacket tight around his shoulders. The train lurched forward. Outside, the fences slipped past, those familiar lines of wire that had defined his horizon for nearly 2 years. The punishment, he realized, had never been cruelty. It was limitation. As the countryside blurred by, he took out his notebook. The pages were few, the pencil dull, but the words came anyway. We thought they would chain us. Instead, they gave us work, wages, and names again. They paid us in tobacco and kindness, the most confusing currency of all. He tore the page free and folded it into his pocket. Maybe he'd send it home one day. Maybe not. Some truths were easier to carry in silence. Years later, historians would write about the politics and the policies, the Geneva Rules, the Red Cross inspections, the agricultural quotas. They would measure the success of Britain's POW system in numbers and reports. None of them would mention how a handful of cigarettes could teach a man the weight of decency. László never returned to Hungary. The ruins of Budapest belonged to a world that no longer had space for him. Instead, he found work in a textile mill in northern England, then in a small tailor's shop near Leeds. József joined him for a time. Imre went home and stopped writing after a single letter. Every Christmas, a card arrived at the shop from the Harlands. No message, just "Hope you're well." László always sent one back. Still working. Still grateful, he kept the W. Turner jacket long after it was threadbare. In its pocket, he stored the note from Mrs. Harland, the last cigarette from Annie Price's packet, and the folded diary page from the train. On quiet nights, he would unfold it and read the line again, not with sadness, but with the calm certainty of a man who understood restraint. The barbed wire had been the punishment, the cigarettes were policy, the clothes were proof. He smiled, set the note aside, and lit the final cigarette. The smoke curled upward, grey and soft, disappearing into the ceiling like history itself. If stories like this remind you that compassion can change even the hardest hearts, don't just scroll past, share it. Leave a comment, pass it on, and keep the memory of humanity alive, because sometimes the quietest victories are the ones that last forever.